right, good morning. Welcome back to the morning briefing. It's Thursday, May 12th, and it's episode 178. I'm Phil Brandt, and with me, as always, is your friend and mine, co-host Burt Garland, shareholder with Ogletree Deacons. Welcome, Burt. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Phil. I'm doing just great. It's what day is it today? Is it August 12th?
It feels like the middle of summer. You got to love it. I love the heat. I'm ready to get into the swimming pool and on the lake. For me, this is the best time of the year, but it is quite early for this kind of heat, isn't it?
It is. I don't mind the dry heat at like I had out in Arizona last week, but this humidity this early in the year, something else. We're still playing hockey.
Yeah, and we're just starting the hockey playoffs. If we keep winning like we are, we'll be doing this a month from now as well.
Big game tonight.
We got the Blues here. I got them up here. Hopefully we'll win game 6 tonight and close out this series against the Minnesota Wild. I know I'll be watching, and it's been quite an exciting series. And I got to tell you, I love Coach Berube. I mean, I think that guy has everything it takes to be a great coach. I love his style. I like his strategy. I like his approach. I don't know if you're a hockey fan and watch it, Bert, but it's been an exciting series.
I'm a huge hockey fan, and I have been watching, and I'll actually be in attendance live tonight. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope we get to see him close it out tonight.
Yeah, I will be there as well, front row seats in my living room, and be enjoying that. Great. But hey, I got to ask you, I also know you're a Jeeper, and did you take the top off the Jeep?
Did not take the top off the Jeep, and actually, I'm glad I didn't because of how hot it is. I went right from not wanting the top off because it was cool out to not wanting the top off because it's just too darn hot out there.
Yeah, it's I've contemplated taking the top off yesterday, but I think it's going to cool down just a little bit here, and I'll wait just a little bit longer.
Phil, all right, Phil, do us all a favor and just leave your top on, okay?
Yeah, I will do that. It is a workplace show. All right. It is our goal to keep you informed so you can more effectively lead your organization. And to that message, I want to ask you to share with us in the chat line what is most pressing at your organization that you would like us to build into the conversation next week. So that's our goal. We're always trying to keep you most informed so you can lead your organization effectively. And if you would share with us what is most pressing, and I know you're going to say staffing, but if there's something other than staffing, let us know what that is. We'd like to build that into the program next week. We'd love to see that in the chat line. Bert, we got lots to talk about. Let's just go through the list here. We have, I want to talk and share with the group the BLR wage chart that was shared in the New York Times. I think that's a really important chart to start with. I also know there's big trouble for Starbucks and even a woke company like Starbucks. Get it? Woke, coffee, woke. Anyway, that's my attempt at humor. Even a woke company like Starbucks can't be woke enough. They got big trouble on their hands. And Colorado's passing a bill for non-competes for 6-figure earners. And let's see, the EEOC union is up in arms over workers demanding, workplaces demanding the workers return to the workplace, which is not just an EEOC issue, but I know workers across America are saying it's time to come back into the office, and workers are saying, no, thank you. And that's an interesting time to be doing that when we're having labor shortages. So I don't know where exactly that will go, but I'm seeing more and more workers saying, please come back, and workers saying, no, thank you, not interested. So pick your poison, Bert. Let's start with the wage chart first, and we will then take it from there. Nick, if you can share the chart, thank you very much. I just wanted to share this chart with our listeners for a couple of reasons. One, it's an astonishing chart. When you look at since 2019, what has happened to wages. And there was a time when we said, what will happen when people get used to this unemployment, the additional unemployment benefit that we were receiving at the time from the federal government? And when you look back at it now, you can see what has happened. And, you know, we've recuperated that unemployment and more in our standard wages. And the one that jumps out to me, while they're all a huge hockey stick increase, The one that jumps out to me is the leisure and hospitality. Look at the purple line there. I hope people can see that online, but it's gone up almost, I would guess it to be 23, 24% in wages in leisure and hospitality across the country. And the retail sector as well, up almost 20%, looks about 19%. General business across all industries is up over 15, let's call it 17% there, Bert. Some big numbers and big increases when we look at a battle of wages across the country. Anything jump out to you in particular here?
Yeah, it's this restaurant and retail, or this hospitality and retail, that really is leading the way here in the wage growth. I mean, obviously wages are up all over dramatically. You can see that dip that took place for most industries right at the time of the pandemic back in 20. And then since then, it has just really resumed the path that it was on since 19. Almost, would look like a straight line, except for that leisure and retail sectors. Those have just absolutely skyrocketed.
It absolutely has, and I know it's a game changer for many industries. And forget customer service in that whole process. I don't know if anyone else experiences it, but customer service has probably taken an equal line in the other direction as it relates to retail, leisure, hospitality, and I would just say across all industries in general. I have a habit as I go through the drive-through of just kind of forcing whoever is serving me to say thank you and you're welcome or have a nice day. Just have some fun with it. I look at this and I'm like, I'm passing my money, or I'm being served. I don't get eye contact. I don't get thank yous. I don't get you're welcome. The customer service equally has just dropped off, and it is amazing that we're paying this much more, but we're getting so much less in return.
Well, and I think
that's
a symptom of a bigger problem, though, Phil. And it's the employees who are working. We're going to talk about staffing shortages still, or everybody's aware of the massive staffing shortages. But the employees who are working, from their perspective, they're overworked. They're overworked and overwhelmed these days. And you combine that with what's known as the misery index. Which we could save for another show, but there are some statistics out there which just show the level of misery in the country. Really, nothing's going right these days, and no matter which side of the political fence you're on, there's just upheaval everywhere. People are miserable, and so I think that the quality and the lack of customer service that you're seeing is symptomatic of some bigger problems.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know who's going to be even more miserable after tonight? The Minnesota Wild, Bert. They're going to be more miserable as the Blues put one on them. All right. The other thing that this chart makes me think about is really our next topic when we're talking about what's happening at Starbucks. Big trouble, right? So their leisure, hospitality, retail, they're somewhere in that space. Their wages are going skyrocketing. They're having union troubles because they believe they should be paid more and have better benefits and working conditions and so on. But they have big troubles ahead. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's really interesting because Starbucks, the CEO of Starbucks, a guy named Howard Schultz, he has kind of professed to be on board with what many are calling a woke agenda. The woke corporation that is sort of what they consider to be taking the proper side of these social justice type issues. Yet, nevertheless, that is not translating very well into the company's ability to avoid unionization. Most of the people who work at Starbucks, not surprisingly, have been with the company. And I'm talking about the people who work in the stores. Most of those folks, by far the majority, have worked for the company for less than a year. Okay. And so these are relatively new employees. And until December, just 5-6 months ago, none of Starbucks, roughly 9,000 corporate run US coffee shops were unionized. So not a single one of them.
And that was December of 2021.
Correct. Just 5-6 months ago. And by August, all U.S. employees will be guaranteed a minimum wage of $15 an hour. And so they are leading the path in that regard. But now workers at more than 60 locations in 17 states have voted to join a union called Workers United, which is an affiliate of the Service Employees International Union, the SEIU. And about 175 more Starbucks have petitioned the federal government for votes of their own.
Okay, now, hold on. Let's just make sure we're understanding the numbers. As of December of 2021, just this last December, 0 Starbucks were unionized.
Correct.
And since that time, did you say 30?
No, 60 locations in 17 states.
60 locations across 17 states have joined a union.
Yep. And there's about 175 more petitions for union votes in 175 additional stores.
Yeah, that is a staggering number. One would say definitely success for the union workers there, or the unionization effort.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll caution people on is I want to introduce, I don't know if we've talked about it before. I think we have discussed this before, actually, Phil. And I want to introduce the concept of salting. And what salting is that you have an individual who's actually an employee of a union. They're actually a union employee. And they go to work for a company. They get hired by a company with the sole goal in mind of organizing that company. That's their job. They get hired by a Starbucks, for instance. Starbucks doesn't know that this individual works for the union. And then they organize the company sort of from the inside out. And this is a real danger in the retail sector. Remember, I mentioned before that most of the folks who work inside these Starbucks stores have been employed with the company for less than 1 year. And so when you have these short-term employees and you've got difficulty hiring right now and trying to get people to staff your stores, you might let your guard down a little bit as to who you are hiring. And you're kind of willing to take anyone, and you're not looking closely at the job histories on the resume to try to see if there's a pattern of somebody kind of quickly coming and going from one organization to another. And you may end up hiring a SALT, especially in the restaurant and the retail and hospitality sectors, where the workforce is very transient. They kind of come and go. There aren't oftentimes a lot of people who by design aren't making a career of working in the hospitality and the retail sector. And you are at risk for salting there. And I suspect that there is quite a bit of this going on in these stores. I've not heard of evidence of this yet, but just knowing 25 plus years of doing this type of work, I strongly suspect that salting is taking place.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you brought that up, Bert, because I have experienced that in my career, knowing and discovering that some of the people we had hired were employed by the union. And to that fact, they're getting a paycheck from the company I work for, and they're getting a paycheck from the union in order to organize it. And that is, and their only purpose of why they joined that company. And it was interesting that when they were successful, and, I think I've said before, I've been in 22 of these things, and I did lose one campaign to the union. And the moment after we had a contract negotiated, which took us more than a year, the SALTs left. Mm-hmm. Every one of them that we expected that was there really for the purpose of salting. We had 2 of them that we really suspected were employed by the union. And as soon as the contract was signed and and approved, they left and went on to another workplace. And it is a very real deal. And I don't think it exists only in the hospitality and retail world, but in today's world where we're willing to hire people who are going to show up, pass the drug test, and have any level of experience, employers are a little bit desperate, and we're not able to be as selective as we once were. And that makes it really hard to identify who it is that you're hiring and the potential of them to be a salt.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, we experienced for years what are called these workers' rights groups. Typically, most people, the most well-known of these was the Fight for 15. And the entity that was funding Fight for 15, which really targeted McDonald's quite a bit, that was the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. And so it is no surprise to me to see that this workers union that is organizing these days is an offshoot of the Service Employees International Union.
Yeah. Let's see. We're getting some feedback as it relates to topics for next week. And I just want to point out, because Kathy has made a great suggestion here, but particularly as it relates to the compensation chart this week or this month, coming up at our roundtables, we will have Michael Makikovich. Some of you all remember Mikey Mack from our program here. He is our compensation expert. He'll be coming in from New York to hold in-person roundtable sessions for our groups where we are going to talk and study what's happening in the space of compensation. And what I can tell you is it's dynamic. Some people believe it's coming to a cap. Some people believe it's steadying. Some people think it might be reducing. Bert, you had mentioned that even in your conference in our pre-show, that you have some employers putting hiring freezes on, and maybe a reversal could be laying ahead of us. But nevertheless, compensation is very dynamic right now. Kathy, I would definitely suggest we get you into that roundtable. Any of our members are welcome to attend, but you must be a member to attend. But that is nevertheless a dynamic situation. Bert, also, is there a place people can go to and see a list of union organizing attempts? I know you lawyers have a secret list, but is there something in the out in the public, a website?
Yeah, there are places, not necessarily in the easily accessible in the public website. The NLRB does not just readily publish companies that are being organized. You sort of have to get data from each NLRB office and compile it yourself. Our organization does what we can to do that. I think the individual who asked this, Kathy, is really asking, is there a list of known union organizers that employers can access? Oh, yeah. So a list of SALTs. And unfortunately, Kathy, there is not. There is no way the unions would know who their SALTs are, but they certainly wouldn't publish that information. There is no way for us to know.
That's right. I offered once for the union to hire me, Bert. I said, the problem is, I said, you all don't hire people like me and our attorney that I was working with at the time. So you keep hiring these yahoos out there that are misleading people. You need to hire someone like me. And they said, well, let's do that. I just told them they couldn't afford me. But nevertheless, yeah, they want nothing to do with someone like me. That's for sure. And I have a philosophical challenge with that anyhow. Let's get on to the next question. So Colorado's working to pass a bill for non-competes for six-figured earners. That's going to be interesting. They wouldn't be the first to do that, I don't think. I do think that exists in some other states or in portions of it, but it is becoming more and more popular.
It is. And so our neighbors and a lot of our listeners over on the east side of the river over in Illinois are used to a form of this type of legislation. Illinois has a law that restricts non-competes for higher wage earners. I don't recall offhand where they drew the line, but it's somewhere in the $60,000 to $70,000 annual salary per year. The Colorado bill restricts it to employees who are paid $101,250 annually, and that's scheduled to increase each year. That's how they define highly compensated employees. And so what that really, so Oregon and Washington also limit non-competes to workers earning six figures. But I think this reflects a larger trend and something that the Biden administration has really been pushing, and that is the idea that that the United States does not want to put non-compete restrictions on employees who don't earn significant amounts of money. Now, this is consistent, frankly, with advice I've been giving to employees for decades now, which is non-compete agreements are not one size fits all. And if you have a lower level employee who really could not harm the organization if they go to work for a competitor, I would not have a non-compete with that employee. There are less restrictive means to restrain that employee to protect the employer's protectable interests and their confidential information, their customers, et cetera. That can largely be accomplished through confidentiality agreements and perhaps non-solicitation agreements without the need for a non-compete. I would reserve those non-compete agreements for those employees truly who, if they left your organization and joined a competitor, just by virtue of the fact that they joined a competitor, they might be able to harm your company.
Yeah, and I will tell you, having dealt with non-competes most of my career, there was a time when you had a non-compete and it just stuck, and it was easier to defend when someone left and was competing, or at least in the eyes of the company, they were competing. But in today's world, and having experienced them with our employers and with myself, they are not easy to defend today. I mean, they get picked apart in every which way as to what a competitor is and so on. And I would advise anyone that's listening, it's great to have those refreshed. We have a process that we refresh those every 2 years. We do that with Ogletree through Bert. He helps us in that discussion. Who should get the non-compete? What should it say? Where do they live? How do they need to be different for the state in which they reside, and so on. So that is not something to take lightly. It's very routine in our world of HR, but it's not routine at all when we get into defending them.
Yeah, Phil, you're talking
tricky.
about
they're tricky.
You're talking about enforcing them in court. And the problem is that these are very judge dependent. The case law is very clear, even in a state like Missouri, that restraints on trade, and this is almost true in every state across the country, the courts analyze these agreements from the standpoint of a restraint on trade is something that's disfavored in the law. And so you're coming into try to enforce an agreement, and your starting point is that this agreement is disfavored under the law. That's where you're beginning. And so the courts will look to whittle away at these things. They do take them seriously in states like Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, but they better not be overly broad. They better be very narrowly tailored to protecting the employer's protectable interests, legally protectable interests.
Absolutely. All right, Bert, what is happening with people returning to work and the EEOC union, and they're up in arms over this. And I know people in general are up in arms when it comes to having to return to work. We talked about what would happen, where would the tolerance be for employers when we have a post-pandemic environment. And as employers are saying, okay, it's time to come back into the workplace, employees are saying, no, not so quickly. And it was on the radio this morning on my way in when I was listening to talk radio. Employers are saying, come back to work, and employers are saying, we don't want to. And if you want to make me do that, then I'm going to look for another job. I have options.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of our federal government workers, we recognize that the postal workers are unionized, and there are other sectors of the federal government that are unionized. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the primary federal agencies which are charged with enforcing the laws against United States employers, mainly the EEOC and the NLRB, that they actually have their own unions also that represent their workers. And so there's something called the American Federation of Government Employees Council, and they represent EEOC workers. And they filed an unfair labor practice charge recently, just this week, or I'm sorry, last week. And the union is really demanding 100% telework until the terms of a return to office plan are fully negotiated with the EEOC. And what spurred this was that the EEOC apparently told workers on May 5th that they needed to return to their physical offices by May 16th with basically 1 to 2 days a week. And the union representing the employees is just up in arms about this, which, you know, again, if it wasn't our federal government and our tax dollars at work here, it would kind of be funny. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're paying for all of this. EEOC senior leadership had returned in-person office work by the end of March, and non-supervisory, non-bargaining unit personnel began returning to the office starting April 11th. And the agency had said unionized employees would return in phases, starting tentatively just back on April 25th. And really what the union is up in arms about is the number of days that employees are expected to return to the office each week. And they want to negotiate this with the union or with the EEOC. And the EEOC is telling the union and the employees that this impacts the agency's ability to, quote, serve the public in person during intake, mediation, hearings, and other mission critical operations. So you've got the EEOC fighting with its own union over return to work now.
Yeah, and to some degree, I just wonder if this isn't a bigger publicity stunt in a certain way to bring attention to the fact that it's working conditions and working environment that get negotiated, and that the union is trying to do that to help bring light to, hey, if you had a union, your employer would have to negotiate these terms with us, versus the employer can just say, come back to work, or these are your working conditions. And I know employers have a right to do that. However, I understand your point. I just think there's a lot at play over why we're making news over this and why it's happening. There definitely wasn't the same concern when we were sending people home, but paying them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I do agree with you, Phil. I think there is a piece of that the fact that I see these things in all the legal publications that I receive on a daily and nightly basis. The fact that you heard it on the radio on your way into work this morning shows that it is making news, regular news headlines, and drawing attention to the fact that if you have a union, then the union can try to step in and negotiate the return to work. And while I don't think they'll ultimately be successful with it, although who knows, given the Biden administration's NLRB, maybe they will be successful with it. But I do think that there is a publicity piece to this.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it is. But what is more interesting is the opinion of the radio was in favor of working from home. It wasn't a balanced opinion that, hey, employers are, they're paying the bill. They're trying to manage workplace culture. They're trying to manage customer service. They're trying to get work done. They have cost and everything associated with a workplace, and have every right in today's world to make a reasonable request that you work from an office environment. The opinion was, well, why not just let them keep working from home? What's wrong with it? You've done it this long. You've done it this far. Well, there are consequences to that. And I know in my conversations with employers, we experience those consequences. I experience it here. It isn't as easy and as efficient as when everyone is in the workplace and communication happens much easier. So that book, I guess, is to be written, and we'll keep a close eye on that one for sure.
For sure. I agree with you on that.
All right. I had a question here about when Mikey Mack, our compensation guru, will be returning to the roundtable. For our members, that will be in June, the roundtable for June. So if you're a member of AIM, we definitely invite you to participate in that roundtable. It's going to be an interesting one. And who knows what will change between now and next month, but I would tell you this, probably a lot. All right, well, that is it. Tonight we have the Blues game, 8:30 Central Standard Time. Bert's going to be there in person, bringing home a winner, and we will be back on air next Thursday at 7:30. See you then. Bye-bye.
Go Blues.
Tell your story, promote your products, communicate with your employees and customers vividly, dynamically, and powerfully. Whether it's a company video, recruitment video, online training, or live meeting, Feature Group can help you from scripting to highly polished finished production. Whether it's live or on demand, we have the skills and equipment to wow your audience and drive your message home. Feature Group USA, the one-stop shop for all your broadcasting needs.